Week 15 in the NFL, and we have a handful of key games to handicap with playoff ramifications on the OFN Today. Mark Lawrence of Covers.com is here to help me break it all down. Mark, the week is already underway with Thursday night game. No more Thursday night games. So how do you feel about no more Thursday games? You're okay with that?
I'm good with that, just so long as I don't have to watch Adam Gase in primetime football. I'll be
Adam Gase, my Jet fans, you probably get along with a lot of the Jet fans, like those negative guys up in New York who just they'll be negative no matter what. So anytime they get an opportunity to complain, so considering how bad a season it's been, you'd fit in really well with the way that they're trashing Adam Gase this season.
Well, for whatever right reasons, I just know from his days down here in Miami what his habits and traits are, and I'm seeing the same things evolve up there with the Jets in New York. And basically, simply put, we saw it Thursday night against Baltimore. He is a dink and dunk coach, and that's why he's going to ruin Sam Darnold's career. All he wants to do is throw a pass at the line of scrimmage or 2 or 3 yards beyond and look for yards after the catch. Everybody knows it. I know it. The defensives know it. The opposing teams know it. And he's not going to win football games that way. And that's why he took himself out of any chance of winning the Baltimore game Thursday night. He's got 4th and 1 at the 4-yard line just before the half. He's got Le'Veon Bell in the backfield. And what does he do? He got a dink and dunk again. And they go to the locker room down 14, and it was lights out for the Jets at that point thereafter.
Yeah, well, they were playing with a high school team, though. But, yeah. It is what it is. It's an ugly thing. And the one thing he does have going for him is that it seems like no matter what year it is, his teams are pretty high on the list of leading the league in injured reserve players, especially at the quarterback spot. So, but we'll see. Jets, we'll find out next year about the entire organization when their GM goes out and drafts for the first time. And we'll see what else happens because their season's over. The Ravens, do you think how serious are you that they can win a Super Bowl with the offense they have? Do they have enough defense? Because it is slowly starting to turn as far as the direction the NFL offenses are going. We saw it with Patrick Mahomes last year. We're seeing it with Lamar Jackson this year. This kind of stuff never would have been this successful just 3 or 4 years ago. It hasn't broken through yet for a world championship, but we're getting close, and maybe it'll happen this year. I don't think it will. I still think that a better team with a better defense will shut them down enough, and as much as everybody jumps on Baltimore as the best team in football, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to get their due at some point. Maybe it's the Super Bowl, maybe it's the AFC Championship game, but how about you?
Well, I agree. When Baltimore's had problems this year, it's been against teams with really good defenses. And that's what they're going to incur when they do make it to the playoffs. So they're going to have to step up their game at that point because there's going to be plenty of film on Lamar Jackson for opposing coaches to get ready for those playoff games. I'm with you. I don't think they win the Super Bowl. I don't even know if they get to the Super Bowl, but I do know this. They're awfully exciting watching them nonetheless.
Yeah, that's again, it is good for generally speaking, it's good for the sport that this type of new wave football, more college game is working because it does give you a lot more of an exciting opportunity for younger players and especially younger quarterbacks to perform better, a lot quicker when their careers started than in the past. In the past, it would take you 3 or 4 years before you could even come close to having the type of success that guys like Mahomes and Jackson are having.
No question about that. And tip of the hat to John Harbaugh. I think he's a really excellent coach. And I don't know if Lamar Jackson fell into his lap, with that 31st pick in the National Football League draft. Might have been awfully fortuitous. But nonetheless, he did. He's in Baltimore, and they're capitalizing on that. And like I say, when the playoffs come, I think everybody's going to be glued to the tube in the games that the Ravens play.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about the top games this week, and we're going to start with another primetime game. And Sunday night, it's a game we both agree on, the Bills over the Steelers. The Bills are getting 2. And this was one of the first games when I was looking at the odds this week that I was just immediately gravitated towards. because the Bills are just a better football team than Pittsburgh. Period. Throw in the fact, and this is the important thing. And when I look at games, see, I prefer, because I'm not a professional handicapper like yourself, I prefer to handicap games when I know for a fact both teams need and want to win the football game. So you don't have to take all these other measurables that, of course, that you're such an expert on to factor into whether a team is ready and, is this a down week and all the other things that come into a game. Fact is, both of these teams need to win the game. They're both battling for a playoff spot. To me, that means the team that's a better team is going to win the football game. That's why I take everything else out of the equation. And when you've got Hodges as your third-string quarterback going up against the Buffalo Bills defense, and Allen, of course, their starting quarterback is healthy, I just think the Bills have won 5 out of 6 on the road this year. I'm all for Buffalo. I'm not saying that they're going to kill them, but I feel very confident that they win this football game.
Well, I think all the pieces are in place for that exactly to happen in this game, Greg. It starts, first of all, with the Buffalo defense. As you know, they're the third-ranked defense in the league. They gave Lamar Jackson fits last week up in Buffalo. They lost the game by a touchdown, but they held the Ravens to a season-low yardage mark in that game, 257 total yards. They can play defense and they can win games, as you said, also on the road. Pittsburgh has struggled in games on Sunday night football. They're 0-5 against the spread, the last 5 games on Sunday night football games. And I think that the Devlin Hodges Duck story, I think the Duck gets shot down this week. The more and more the season wears on, the more and more game film they're going to have on Devlin Hodges. He's an upgrade over Mason Rudolph. In my mind, I think what Mike Tomlin did was the right move, but eventually the luck runs out. And I think it might happen with Pittsburgh in this football game. And one interesting sidebar note here, that Sean McDermott, the head coach of Buffalo, and Mike Tomlin both played together at William & Mary on the same football team. So they're very, very good friends, these two coaches are, from their playing days, like I say, at William & Mary.
And by the way, speaking of Tomlin, I think this is the best job that he's coached. Anytime, this is really what proves what kind of a coach you are when you've got an established organization like Pittsburgh, and he's been successful there for many years, and then you're put into this spot, sort of like what we saw with Belichick when he had to go to Castle, and yet even though they didn't make the playoffs, they still won like 10 games or something like that. That was a year where 10 games actually, I think you couldn't even make the playoffs, but that was like the one year the Jets actually won the division. When Brady was out. But this shows you, this is the time that shows you what kind of a head coach Tomlin is. But that can only take you so far. Sooner or later, you start going up against teams that need it just as bad as you do, that are better than you are and healthier than you are. And I think that what I'm trying to say is this is not a knock against Pittsburgh or Tomlin. Buffalo's just better.
Well, they may well be the better football team coming in here. They've acted that way this football season here, and you got to give Tomlin his due. I mean, he's really held this team together, with tape and duct tape, if you will, down to a third-string quarterback, and they're still in this playoff chase.
And in the other skill positions. I mean, the running game, the receiver, Juju Smith's been banged up.
Exactly right. I mean, all the key positions have been beat up on this team, and they're still, like I say, in the hunt here. So kudos to Mike Tomlin on the job he's done. This might be his best coaching job in the National Football League so far, given the circumstances.
I've mentioned before, too, that I'm not being not a professional handicapper, one thing I do enjoy doing is having more variety in games than a minimum. So I'm not a big 5-star guy. I put them out, but I don't really have a whole lot more success on 5-star picks than 3-star picks. But I am actually, I didn't even notice it until I was going through my records over the last several weeks, but I'm actually on a 5 straight 5-star picks run. So I've hit 5 straight 5-star picks. 2 of them include Seattle, who happens to be my 5-star pick this week. But the team that was a 5-star pick for me last week was Tennessee, and that's why I'm taking them again over Houston. I've been riding Tennessee for a few weeks now. I'm ahead of where a lot of people are. A lot of people this week are finally starting to give credit to what's going on with Tannehill and the Titans, but you kind of saw this coming, even in the Chief win. There was just something different about Tannehill and this team. It just seems to work perfectly. He doesn't have to be the hero. They're a running team. They play good defense. They seem to be well coached. And Houston, yeah, they've been pretty decent as a dog, but they're 0-2 straight up against the spread on the road as a dog. And I just think they let one get away last week. That was an embarrassing loss. I don't think they can just turn the switch on and they're going to be fine. I just think Tennessee right now is firing just beautifully. They're going to have to go to Houston in Week 17, so Houston can win that one, but I think Tennessee's going to get them here, and I think Tennessee might just win this division.
Well, the way they're playing with Ryan Tannehill, it's hard to get off that merry-go-round. 6-1 in his 7 starts with only 1 point spread loss as well. Playing as good as any quarterback in the league is right now. He's won himself probably a huge contract come next football season. And a tip of the hat to him, because when he was down here in Miami, the struggles he had were not due to Ryan Tannehill. The games that he was a bit erratic in, it was largely because he was injury plagued.
Yeah, he had a lot of injuries. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But when he was healthy, he was really, really good. And we're seeing that right now at Tennessee. So good for them. I'm on the Houston Texans in this football game, though. And Houston is one of these box of chocolate football teams. You don't know what you're going to get out of this team each week. And each and every week. Last week, they laid a big egg, if you will, and I like that. I like the fact that they're coming off red-faced, embarrassed into this football game. And they've got a quarterback in Deshaun Watson that's been outstanding in the role of an underdog in his career, 11-4-1 against the spread. And never lost off of a loss as an underdog, by the way, here in this spot as well. That being the case, I think what goes up usually comes down, and that might be the case for Tennessee in this football game. I'm going to back the Houston Texans plus the points for my side in the contest.
All right. Also, the home team in the Houston-Tennessee series has won 6 straight overall. Let's get to a game we agree on, and that's Minnesota and the Chargers. And we're always going to agree together on a Minnesota game as long as I like Minnesota. So we know what that means. But, look, the Vikings are only a 2.5-point favorite in this one, and that stuck out to me immediately. But look, the Chargers, anytime you have Phillip Rivers, and they're healthier than they've been all season, they blew out the Jags, which everybody's doing that nowadays, but at least they blew them out, so they did what they had to do. Yeah, they're dangerous, no question. But the Vikings are playing for their playoff lives. This is a huge game for them. This isn't one of those games like the Packers are going out there on a winning streak and, we don't care if we win or lose. We're enjoying the weather. It's a learning experience. No, this is a game where the Vikings lose and the Rams win. They could be in big trouble as far as the playoffs are concerned. So I just think Minnesota's they're just too talented. They're having too good of a season to let that type of situation slip away. Next week, Monday Night Football, they host the Packers. I think when it's all said and done, in the next 2 weeks, they're going to be leading the NFC North.
I wouldn't be at all surprised if they aren't. It's a football team that I think brings a lot to the table, and I think they're going to make some noise in the playoffs when that gets around to that point of the season for the Minnesota Vikings. You've got, if you will, a situational spot here that favors them strongly. The Chargers get zero support at home, as you know. There's going to be nothing but Vikings fans in this stadium, in the Charger Stadium here for this football game. So it will be like a home game for the Minnesota Vikings in that sense. The Chargers, because of this lack of support they get at home, the home team in their football game since they made the move from San Diego to LA is 16-27-3 against the spread. That combines the Chargers' road record along with the Chargers' poor home record. And it only bears out the fact that they're much better on the road than they are at home. We've got my usual standout here, my standby. You got the money machine, ATM Mike Zimmer, in another non-division football game. I like that. And when he's off of big wins in those games, he's really good, 16-3 to the spread when he's off a 14-point win. I'm with you. I'm a Minnesota in this game.
Yeah, he's also very good versus the opposition coming off a double-digit win. So he's got really good numbers, Mike Zimmer. And, of course, the Chargers coming off a blowout win over the Jags. Okay, now back to disagreement. And I'm gonna look at this the way that that we talked about the New England Kansas City game last week, because you haven't really gone with New England too much this season. So you decided to go with them last week, which surprised me a little bit. So you paid the price. So I think you're gonna pay the price again this week, Mark, by going to the Clapper and the Dallas Cowboys. How shame on you? How could you do such a thing? The Rams are playing great football right now. They're about a 1.5 favorite. They're looking better than we've seen them look all season. We know how the Cowboys are against winning teams. They haven't won all year. And here is the trend of the week from Playbook.com magazine. The Cowboys are 23-1 against the spread at home, off a straight-up conference loss since 2009, including 0-1 this year. But you, my friend, are going, I don't care about my own historical trends that are that 98 percentile. I'm going with the Clapper.
You're going with the Clapper?
No, you're going with the Clapper.
Oh,
I'm not going with the Clapper.
All right. Well, let me say this about the Clapper in his defense. And every bad situation, there is some ray of light inside of every bad situation. And in Jason Garrett, in his head coaching career, when his Cowboys own a losing record, and he's off back-to-back straight-up and point spread losses, he's been in that role 8 times. He's won 6 of those games straight up, 7-1 to the spread, and a perfect 5-0 against teams coming off a win. So that will be on the line for the Dallas Cowboys this particular week. The biggest game for Dallas is obviously going to be next week against Philadelphia. The truth of the matter is they could lose this game, and it won't matter, because all it's going to matter is next week. But they don't want to go into Philadelphia on a 4-game losing streak. And the other side of the coin for me in this game is this. You've got the L.A. Rams in what I call a classic division sandwich. And what that is basically is a team in the National Football League that's coming off back-to-back division games with back-to-back division games on deck, and wedged in the middle is this non-conference opponent. These teams have struggled mightily in this role. This is the first play of the season, by the way. You don't get these a lot anymore because of the new scheduling by the NFL since they reformatted the divisions. But this is a particular play on the card this week. So the Rams will be falling prey into this, what I call classic revenge sandwich. And nonetheless, they're coming off back-to-back division wins. I realize this is one hot team against one cold football team, but this is a wake-up call for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to ride the Clapper in his best role and fade the Rams in this classic division revenge sandwich spot.
Okay. And you said non-conference, but you meant non-division, of course.
Yeah, non-division. That's what I meant.
And by the way, see, here's the thing. I get what you're saying, but it's like the Buffalo game for me. See, we're getting to the point of the season now where there's certain – look, I'm looking at it just from a completely different perspective because I'm not a professional handicapper like yourself, so you know more than I do. But from my perspective, I'm looking at it as the Rams can't be thinking about division game next week, division game this week, because they lose this week and Minnesota wins, they might be done. That's it. I mean, so this game is everything. I mean, I don't even think they care about next week. That's where I'm coming from. I just think they've got to keep winning games, or else if they lose this week, next week might not mean anything.
I completely understand where you're coming from. I understand the logic and the thinking behind that. But the fact of the matter is, when you are coming off back-to-back division games,
Sure.
Those are games that you got up for, because division games mean twice as much
Sure.
to teams as non-division games.
Numbers don't lie. Yep.
Exactly right. So they're human, and they're going to come when you're off back-to-back division opponents. It's a little bit difficult to sustain when you're outside the division in this football game. So we'll see whether or not the sandwich holds up or not. We'll see whether the Clapper can change his personality in this football game, because there's no question about it. The Rams right now are playing their best football of the season, but because they're favored in this football game.
And look, one of us is going to be sitting there on Sunday late afternoon and going, I mean, really? I mean, I put money, or I put my mouth on, you could say, for me, it would be Jared Goff. Like, if he has one of those 6 for 18 games, I'm going to be like, I mean, seriously? I mean, I stuck my neck out for that guy. And then, of course, if Dallas loses, you're gonna go, man. I stuck my neck out for the clapper.
You're exactly right.
I
I know
mean,
exactly where you're coming
how
from.
can I do that? Especially since he'll be down to his last 3 games anyway. I'm not sure these trends are going to be needed anymore next year. Even I do think if there's enough job openings, I could actually see him getting another head coaching job. There are a lot worse head coaches in the NFL that get new jobs. So if the crappy coaches with the crappy records can get a second chance, so can the Clapper.
So can the Clapper, he will, and obviously so too will Ron Rivera. We'll find him
Absolutely.
at a program as well. So while they may lose their jobs, they will still be in our sights come next football season.
All right, now one more that, as I mentioned, this is my 5-star pick. So hopefully I'll go 6 for 6. It's Seattle's going to be a part of it for the third time. As I've said here over the last several weeks, about a month now, they've been my Super Bowl pick, and they're a 6-point favorite here. The way I look at it is pretty simple. They're coming off a loss. This is a huge game for them, and they've got a situation where they know they just can't afford to lose regarding the difference between maybe the 1st seed and the 5th seed. These are big games. The Carolina Panthers, after the coach was fired, Rivera, they laid an egg against Atlanta. I don't expect that's going to change just because they're at home. They're not a good home team. They're not anybody that – I don't care if Seattle's got to go with the East Coast to play at 1 o'clock. That's not going to mean anything. I think if Seattle takes an early lead in this game, it could get real ugly.
Well, you know what I'm seeing here, Greg, is I had a real tough time, as you can tell in the newsletter, because we called the margin right on the spread, meaning that while as much as I would have wanted to fade Seattle in this football game, because I have a lot of reasons to fade Seattle in this game, it's difficult to pull the plug out on the Carolina Panthers, who are literally going through the motions right now. And so you're asking, well, one team that's going to be heading to the playoffs to not play well, and a team that's going home or to the golf course here soon to step up and finally play a good football game. So it's difficult to ask that at this stage of the football season here. My only word of warning is this about Seattle. You look at this football team deep down, their defense is not good. I'm not saying their defense is not bad. Their defense is not good. Mm-hmm. They rank 26th overall in the National Football League in total team defense. Their rush defense is atrocious. And when you lay points on the road with bad rushing defenses, you almost always get it stuck up you know where. It's a bad spot for Seattle to be in this particular week, playing this 1 o'clock Eastern start. There's a lot of things working against Seattle in the contest here, but for me to take something out and play against them, I got to have a team that I know is going to want to be coming to play the football game. And I'm not sure Carolina's going to do that. So I'll let you continue your ride with Seattle, and I'll watch the merry-go-round from the sideline.
Seattle 14-2, last 16 off of after they play a division road game when they take on a non-division team, and that includes 1-0 this year. So not bad, 14-2 in their last 16 with that trend. Okay, a few other things before I let you go. Let's talk about some potential upsets, because these are games that I think we all agree on. I know we agree on the Bears. I'm not necessarily talking about outright upsets, but I think a couple of these games, or at least the first one, the Bears, we both like. The Bears are getting about 5 with the Packers. They've won 3 straight, 4-5, and the Packers are just, you get the feeling that they're just so vulnerable right now. And maybe this, and I'm not, look, it's just like Goff. Trubisky, me having to stick my neck out there, I don't want to do it, but I just think the Packers are so ripe for just to get beat up. We've seen it happen a couple times this year already with the Chargers and the Niners. I'm not saying they're going to get creamed, but I just think the way at least the Bears are showing, not that they're beating anybody big, but I just think that at least they got some confidence going, that maybe a division opponent, maybe this might be a good spot for the Bears to take advantage.
I think it is as well. You got a revenge rematch here for Chicago in this football game. Aaron Rodgers made the comment that he doesn't mind winning ugly. He just likes winning football games. Well, you can't continue to win ugly and play bad football in the process. They're not just being lucky. They're playing bad football and winning games. We call this out in the newsletter this week. Since game 9, they were out yarded 68 yards a game, are the Green Bay Packers. This is from a 10-win football team. And Mitchell Trubisky has suddenly found his game. They're on a nice 3-game win streak here right now. He's playing some highly effective football. And the Bears have never lost a game behind Mitchell Trubisky in a division contest when the Bears have a winning record. They're 5-0 straight up and against the spread, and I think they make it 6 for 6 Sunday at Green Bay.
All right, now you are going with the big upset this week. Now, I like the Colts to cover, but you like the Colts to upset the Saints. And, boy, the Colts, with all the injuries they've had, and then the last couple of weeks, they've blown leads late. They're just kicking themselves. I mean, they would be in a good position right now to just make the playoffs. Maybe they get a little healthier. I'm just concerned. Hilton out and Ebron out, and it's catching up to them. At least they got Mack back last week, but I just can't believe they lost that game. They blew that game last week. But I see where you're coming from. The Saints have just not been very good in this spot this year. Matter of fact, they are 1-2 straight up, 0-3 against the spread in their last 3 as a home favorite. And they have dropped 7 straight covers as a home favorite of more than 7 points after a home loss. So I see where you're coming from here, but you like the Colts to win the game outright.
I do. I see New Orleans struggling here, and I think there's a problem with the Saints right now that people aren't accepting, and it's the fact that Drew Brees' better days are indeed in the rear view mirror. I'm just wondering how long it's going to be before we're going to be hearing "We Want Teddy" being chanted by the fans in New Orleans, because when Teddy Bridgewater was their quarterback, they did nothing wrong. They won and covered all 5 of their football games. So he's waiting on the sidelines, waiting for that call. The Colts are a football team that right now are really hanging by the threads. They blew another big lead late in the football game last week. This is must-win desperation time for the Indianapolis Colts. They win and they're still alive. They lose, they're heading to the golf course. I like the Colts in this football game. I think the pressure is squarely on New Orleans to try and right themselves in a primetime football game. I think the Colts come in here real loose and win the football game.
Yeah, you look at it with the Carolina and Jacksonville left on their schedule. If Indianapolis wins this game, well, they're going to be 9-7, and at least that gives them a shot.
Exactly.
So that's how big this game is. By the way, the Colts have covered 9 straight games versus 500 or greater NFC opponents, and the Saints are just 1-5 in their last 6 ATS on Monday Night Football. I also like the Dolphins and the Redskins covering as dogs. What do you think about those two?
I would not disagree in either football game. I do know Miami's really, really banged up right now. Their 2 best secondary players are not going to play here. They got some wide receivers that haven't practiced this week. But Brian Flores is not letting his football team quit on him, and he's not quitting on them as well. They're going right back to New Jersey, if you will, MetLife Stadium, where they were last week. And who are the Giants to be favored over anybody?
Agreed.
Washington,
9 straight losses. Come on.
I mean, give me a break. And you got the Washington Redskins here. They lost a real tough season opener to Philadelphia to begin the football season. And, Philadelphia right now couldn't beat themselves if it was a scrimmage game and there was a line on it. They trailed the whole game last week against the Giants. The only lead they had was in overtime when they won the football game. And the other side of the coin is what we talked about earlier. Philadelphia has Dallas up on deck next week. That'll be their biggest game of the football season here. I don't see them going in here and trouncing the Washington Redskins. I'd grab the points with you.
And a couple other things. The Eagles also ton of injuries. Redskins have covered 3 straight games. Eagles are 0-2 straight up ATS as a road favorite this year. And the Eagles are 0-3 against the spread versus division opponents this year. So a few other things just to throw. And by the way, I like the Bucks a lot. I can't put them as a top pick because they are the Bucks, but as a 3-point favorite against Detroit with that quarterback situation, I mean, they got injuries all over the place. You got Stafford out, Jones on IR, the running back still out, 2 starting offensive linemen out, 2 starting defensive linemen out, starting middle linebacker out, and a rookie from Purdue as your quarterback. I mean, the way the Bucks are playing, why wouldn't you take Tampa Bay?
Well, there was a time when there was a rookie from Purdue that's going to be in the Hall of Fame. That's Drew Brees. But Matt Blau is not Drew Brees,
No, no, no,
for
no, no.
sure. And the other side of the coin is Bruce Arians just makes a living beating up on losing football teams. His football team is playing really good football right now. They won the yards in 7 of the last 8 football games, has Tampa Bay. They've been eliminated from the playoffs, but that doesn't mean they're going to quit playing football. As I mentioned, you took a look at Bruce Arians, 40-16 in his career against away against losing football teams. I think he wins this game, and I think he gets the money.
And then finally, I'm very intrigued to see how much better Drew Lock continues to play. It's good to see. It's great for the NFL when these young quarterbacks can have some success. It's just so important. And I think it's especially the way that they blew out Houston last week. Chiefs coming off a win that clinched the division. So I'm thinking Denver may not be a bad play here to cover the spread, even though Kansas City's dominated the series now for several years. But I'm just really intrigued to see if Drew Lock can continue this. The Broncos have covered 7 of their last 9 games overall.
Yeah, we said in the newsletter they've got a new locksmith in Denver these days, and it's nice to see John Elway finally
Yeah.
sleeping it. And my goodness, I mean, he finally drafted a quarterback that has come in and won his first 2 starts. He's been horrible. He's been like Larry Bird of the NBA when it comes to selecting talent, has John Elway, and it's really bitten him here a lot of late. One special note here in the contest is that Denver has never taken this many points in this series going back at least until the 1970s.
Wow.
Yes, I don't have them this big of a dog in this series. My database goes all the way back to 1980. So if they took more than 10 points in the 70s, that would have been the last time.
All right, sounds good. Everything else going good for you at Playbook and Covers?
Everything's going real good. We got all of our selections available at covers.com for this particular weekend. We're also publishing our Playbook College Bowl stat report.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to be available Monday at the playbook.com website. If you're serious about the bowl games, you seriously need to download a copy of the Playbook Bowl stat report.
Oh, absolutely. You can't do a whole bowl game extravaganza without taking a look at your bowl game extravaganza. And Army and the under, is that the way it's been going as far as the Army-Navy series over the last several years, right?
Well, it's been the under for sure.
The dog and the under, yeah. So
7 straight years, and it's been the dog and the under, and the dog in the game here this year just happens to have a little bit of something to play for here. Yes, Navy's going to a bowl game, and no, Army is not. But if Army wins this football game, they will win again. They will win again the trophy,
Commander-in-Chief, yeah.
Trophy. Yes, they will, because all 3 of the military teams will split out against one another, and it goes to the team that won it last. That was Army last year, so the cadets have something to play for in this game.
They would hold on to it. Okay.
Yes, they.
Well,
yes.
and of course, and I did see too something where Army's record though they hadn't won a game against Navy in like 13 games when they were a losing team and Navy was a winning team.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a dry run for them there that way, but I'll counter that with Jeff Monken's record against
the spread. That's the spread, correct? Okay.
Yes, Jeff Monken against the spread against 750 or better opponents in his career, he's 12-2 against the spread. The better the opponent, the better his football teams play. I think it's going to be a one heck of a football game, and I wouldn't be surprised if this goes dead under again in this Army-Navy Classic.
And let's hope the rain hangs out for at least it's supposed to stop maybe even the second half at some point. Hopefully it'll keep raining because we like it when it rains and snows in the Army-Navy game.
And we like it for the under bets. Yes, we do.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, Greg, enjoy the games. Be well. Thank you.